Mom, Dad, there's no way that I can express to you what I'm feeling right now. My heart is full to bursting, except to say, I'm the king of the world!
Hello and welcome back to Cameron, King of the World. And we're pretty much at the end now. It's the end of a long road for me, about 6 months of making this, and we still got the coda video to wrap things up. But this is the last video of something I actually have a substance to say about James Cameron, I hope. So this is going to be my wrap-up by ranking James Cameron's directorial filmography. With a few alterations and stipulations, I should say. So what I'm going to do, and when I first drafted out this whole series, I had two videos here at the end. One was going to be my ranking of James Cameron's filmography as far as my favorites of his filmography, and then the next video would be me ranking his filmography objectively and telling you what I think are his best films in order. But I feel like as other things started cropping up and the series started filling out even more, I cut the objective one. But for the sake of this video, at the end, I will tell you very briefly what I believe to be his best films objectively. Like, you know, maybe not my favorites, but which are the best ranked again in order. So I have a list on my letterbox, which I'm going to run off of just so I don't make any mistakes, because I tend to make mistakes if I do a list and I don't I go from memory and I sometimes get jumbled up. I'm not going to show you the actual, well, I'll show it to you just so you can see what I'm working off of, but there's the screen with all the movies. So yeah, don't peek and don't see, so it spoils you for the list, because that's why the ranking videos are so fun, because you get to kind of gradually see my tastes and preferences unfold as the video goes on. Now, for the purposes of this, I'm going to count 12 movies. So there are, for me, his 7 main films, which are, you know, in order, The Terminator, Aliens, The Abyss, Terminator 2, True Lies, Titanic, and Avatar. Now, he did partially work on Piranha 2, and just for the sake of argument for these two lists I'm going to give you in this video, Piranha 2 is at the very bottom of both lists. So you can just forget about that, because it doesn't fucking matter. He didn't direct the film. He worked on it for about a week, did some pre-production, but was fired unceremoniously and worked on a grand total of 2 scenes in the entire movie. So for me, it's not a James Cameron film, and I wouldn't want to count it anyway. But for the sake of argument, it's at the very bottom. And for the objective one, I'm just going to count those 7 main movies. But for this one, which is my preference of all of his films, the ones that he has directed, we're going to go with the 12. So at number 12 is Piranha 2. Just not a very good film, you know. Number 11, we have Xenogenesis, his 1978 short film, which, you know, I would say that there's more accomplished stuff going on in Piranha 2, but with Xenogenesis, there's just a flavor of what he wants to do, and it's a little bit ambitious, and I kind of like that. It's more interesting to me, and it also only takes up about 10 minutes of my life and not an hour and a half like Piranha 2. So, well, one thing I will say, you know, as we go to the top 10 here, so to speak, I'll just say that the 3 documentaries that he directed / co-directed, Expedition Bismarck, Ghosts of the Abyss, and Aliens of the Deep, they're at the top of the list. So they're kind of, it goes documentaries, then feature films. So it just naturally kind of ranked in a way that is kind of pleasing in that sense. And, you know, none of his documentaries to me are more enjoyable as a film than any of his feature films. But I almost put one of them above, and I'll tell you when we get to that. But number 10, we have Aliens of the Deep. So that was one that I really enjoyed, but I feel like it just didn't have the oomph factor that the other 2 had, given the fact that they were exploring real shipwrecks. And so to that end, number 9, we have Ghosts of the Abyss. And I was surprised, because I'm so fascinated, I should say, with Titanic and with the shipwreck and shipwrecks in general. I've talked about that in the previous videos. There's kind of a really fascinating, haunting quality to those things. and especially with Titanic. So I thought that would be the one I'd enjoy the most, but it was actually at number 8, Expedition Bismarck, that I thought was, for me, the best of his documentaries, because it was about something different. It was like, had that World War II flavor to it. It was just a much different story, and the way that it landed on the seabed and slid down the side of the mountain underwater was fascinating to me. And going into that wreckage and seeing the guns still pointing up at the surface, and bringing on board the ship when they went onto the expedition to dive down there, the men who had worked on that ship when it was blown up in battle and sunk, and they survived it. I mean, it's very loaded, and I think it was a fantastic documentary. So those are out of the way. Now we get into the top 7, the 7 main James Cameron feature films. And I would say I almost considered putting Expedition Bismarck above the number 7 spot, which is True Lies. So revisiting this one for this series was the most disappointing, I think, because I enjoyed it, but it, overall it just wasn't as enjoyable as it was when I was a kid. And it's just one of those things. It was fun, and it kind of made me feel like warm and fuzzy for that nostalgic feeling of being a kid and loving this film, but it's aged the worst out of all of his films, I think. Not in a particularly bad way, but it's just the one that has the least substance. And again, it's not trying to be a film that's filled with much substance. It knows what it's doing. It's an entertaining action Arnold Schwarzenegger vehicle, and Cameron leaned into that, had a lot of fun with it, and it's very good. Number 6, we have The Abyss. And man, I kind of wanted this to be higher, because I watched it 3 times over the past 6 months, which I've mentioned many times at this point, so I apologize for the constant repetition, but I was hoping that the special edition version of The Abyss would somehow unlock this aha moment, and it would be like, wow, I like this more than that film or this film. I almost spoiled it there, but so that was just, I don't know, and you get into that weird headspace where you just your mind starts going weird, and you're like, it doesn't matter. This list doesn't matter. It means absolutely fuck all. But you start overthinking it in your head and thinking wow, I should enjoy that more, and maybe that film should be higher up, and that would be different than other people's list. I definitely get caught up in that, where I'm like, should I try and make my list different for the sake of standing out, or should I just be more truthful to what I actually enjoy? And for the most part, I just go with what I really enjoy. And I will say that sometimes when I do a list or a ranking or something, there is that urge to put something higher than you really think it should be, not again to be different and to stand out, but just so more people might want to watch that. And that's a key thing in ranking videos. I think it's fun. I like lists and everything, but when I see someone's top 10 of the year and they put something at the number 1 spot that I've not heard of, I instantly want to go and see that, just to see if it's as good as they say it is. And there's a little bit of a negativity going in there where I'm like, well, it can't be as good as they say it is. And so you go into the film with the wrong mindset, but at least you sit down in front of the screen and watch it. And that's such a big struggle for many people who make films, is just to get people to watch their films, unless there's someone like James Cameron and everyone's going to watch their films. But number 6 is The Abyss. It's very, very good. I love a lot of it, but it's still a bit slow in the first act, and the special edition version didn't quite cut the mustard for me, but I definitely enjoy it. Well, push come to shove, I'd probably watch True Lies over The Abyss, because it's a little bit shorter, and it's just a lot more easy to watch. But if I really wanted to watch a great film, The Abyss would be there over True Lies every day of the week, twice on Sunday. Number 5, moving into the top 5 of this fairly short list, we have The Terminator. Yeah, I know some people will probably be a little bit shocked by that one. Maybe not, I don't know. And again, that's me almost thinking that my list even matters, but it might surprise people that The Terminator is at number 5. But I will say, for me, from here on out, it's all 5-star movies. I love deeply this top 5. And The Terminator is just the one that I love slightly less than the other 4, It's a brilliant film. I absolutely adore it. It makes me, again, nostalgic for my childhood. I watched this film a lot when I was a kid, and it was one of those exciting things where I wasn't supposed to see it, much like Aliens was as well, and even Terminator 2. But, The Terminator was like an 18 rating, like Aliens, and it felt like Terminator 2 almost felt softer to me when I was a kid, because Terminator was an 18. It's a fucking 18 rated one, and I'm like, however young I was, very, very young. So there was an excitement to that, but it's a film that holds up God, does it hold up? And again, we talked about, I'm not going to go into the films too much, and you know, if you're coming to this video independently of anything else, this is the tail end of my, you know, month-long series on James Cameron, and there are fairly lengthy reviews for all of his films, with the exception of True Lies. I didn't talk about that one too much, but you can go back and see the previous chapters in this series and see my full extended thoughts on pretty much everything in Cameron's filmography and career. So I don't need to really tread through all of the, you know, the big points of everything. But Terminator, it's a classic. I almost said a masterpiece. I wouldn't say that it is a masterpiece, but it's a classic. It just has that classic feeling to it. It just captures something. It's one of those really great 80s movies that has a grit to it, a rawness, and you know, knowing how kind of do it yourself a lot of that stuff was. Maybe not as much as they would have you believe, but there was certainly an element of like guerrilla style filmmaking, and you know, just going again, like, you know, going back to, you know, that story of how Cameron realized that when he did Piranha 2 that if I'm going to be a director, I need to make my own movie. I can't be brought in as a director on someone else's thing. I need to make my own damn movie, you know, as a certain kind of independent director would say, make your own damn movie. And that's what Cameron did with the Terminator. He manifested his career by making that film, and that's kind of the genesis point of everything he did after that. You know, that got him the job on Alien 2 at the time, and Aliens just, you know, continued to propel his career forward. So number 4, we have Avatar. So you can rest easy, you can take a deep breath that it isn't higher than that. But yes, I absolutely love Avatar more than the Terminator. I think it's a much better film. I think that it's you know, I wouldn't better story. Yeah, it is a better story because I'm more emotionally involved in it. There's a simplicity to the Terminator, and it is essentially a slasher movie, but it's a really great kind of simple story told well in the Terminator. But Avatar is more complex. There's just, I just love it, and I've talked about it. You know, again, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but I absolutely adore Avatar, and I wouldn't have said that Avatar is above the Terminator, maybe even as recent as 6 months ago. But watching it again last year, 2020, I loved it more than I ever have, and it's just great. Avatar's fucking great. Number 3, we have Terminator 2: Judgment Day. This top 3 is almost impossible for me, but at the same time, it's very clear where each of these 3 films should lie for very different reasons. Terminator 2 is an unequivocal masterpiece for me. It's brilliant. It's absolutely fantastic. I love everything about it. Just talking about it gets me excited about it, you know. I was editing the review of it, and it made me want to watch the film again. You know, I was getting clips from it for my trailer for this series. I wanted to go and watch it again. It's just a fantastic film. It is absolutely brilliant, and has so many great themes about, you know, the way we destroy each other, and about, you know, motherhood, and about hate, and about fate. You know, there's just so many great little themes in there that kind of boil under the surface and just simmer, and then they just kind of really all pop at the end, and just it makes you think, but it also entertains you wildly. What a great film. Number 2 is, it's Titanic. Again, you can breathe a big sigh of relief. Number 2 is Titanic. Incredible film. Again, watching that for this series again was the most I've ever enjoyed it. I think I just continue to reap the rewards of this film emotionally, and it entertains me, it moves me. I think that it's one of the best 3-hour movies ever made, because it just clicks along at such a fucking pace, and it's not fast paced, but it's just so well segmented. And there's so much deleted material from that film, and I feel like Titanic probably would have worked as a 4-hour epic in the vein of stuff like Ben-Hur and the Ten Commandments. But I think just every scene works, and there's such a momentum to it, and it's brilliantly done on absolutely every level. And I know people disagree with that, but I think it's absolutely fantastic. And of course, my number 1 is Aliens. And we'll get to, in just a moment, my objective ranking of his films, and whether or not this list will look similar to that. But Aliens, for me, is not his best film, but it's my favorite film. And it's tricky because I think if someone said to me, you can only watch one James Cameron film again, my mind would jump to Avatar, it would jump to Terminator 2, and it would jump to Aliens, and I feel like Titanic would be the one that might win, which makes me think that is my favorite James Cameron film. But I know that deep down I would force myself to watch Aliens again because I know that that film has such a special place for me, that if I could only watch one of his films again, it would be Aliens. And it is a film that I go back to again and again and again and again. And it's been with me it's been with me my whole life. You know, it's the first film I ever saw. I'm bonded with that film. You know, I'm kind of mated with it for life, so to speak. It's kind of almost like an imprinting process where I first heard about how I saw it when I was a baby, when I was very young, and then I wanted to watch it when I was like 8, 9 years old, and I saw it, loved it, and I've never not loved it. You know, it just always holds up. And again, at this point in time, I am currently working on my own fan edit of the film. And so going in now and getting into the nitty gritty of looking at the film and how it's put together and now starting to study the edits, you get a whole new appreciation. I'm sure if I did that for Terminator 2 or Titanic, it would blossom into a whole new appreciation for those films as well. I know some people don't like looking into how films are made that much and it ruins the illusion for them. For me, it enhances the illusion, and I love just seeing all of the little details about how these things work. And so I'm just appreciating Aliens on a whole other level right now, and I've been reading the behind the scenes stuff. I did that big trilogy of videos on the making of the film that went for 3 hours across this series, so safe to say I really am back in on Aliens, but I think that it would always be the sentimental favorite, and so for me it's probably always going to be the number one. My favorite James Cameron film is Aliens. So there we go, that was my ranking of his filmography, but now we go to his filmography ranked objectively. Now again, we have, wait, is this? Okay, yeah, it almost looked like the same list. It almost looked like, okay, so it is very similar. I didn't even think about this. I did it independently and didn't try to compare them. So, yeah, right at the bottom, Piranha 2, number 12, Xenogenesis, number 11, Aliens of the Deep, number 10, Ghosts of the Abyss, number 9, Expedition Bismarck, number 8, True Lies, number 7, The Abyss, number 6, The Terminator, number 5. So, at this point, I will say, you know, True Lies is very well done for what it's supposed to be, but it's not a great film. You know, The Abyss is almost a great film for me, and The Abyss is so much more technically impressive than The Terminator. It has better acting, it has better visuals, it has a richer story for the most part, but I feel like The Terminator is better because it's more conservative, and it does so much more with so much less running time, with less characters, with less money. And I think it's just so much more effective, and you can put it on and watch it and enjoy it, to me, in a much more succinct way than The Abyss. I don't know. The jury is still out for me on The Abyss, I think, or maybe it's just the fact that I don't love it as much as I want to, and I'm still trying to deal with that. I don't know. But I would put The Terminator just above The Abyss, even though I think The Abyss is more technically impressive than almost all of his films. And the acting from Ed Harris in the resuscitation scene with Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio is some of the best acting I've seen in any film, and certainly in any James Cameron film, I would say, for the most part. So it's one of those things where The Abyss is like almost low-key his best film, but it just doesn't, as the full package, quite gel together in the way that I think his other films do a lot better. So number 4 is Avatar. I do think Avatar is a better film than The Terminator, but not better than the top 3. So we're now in the top 3 again of Aliens and Terminator 2 and Titanic, and in which order do I put them in when I'm ranking his filmography objectively? Number 3, we have Aliens. It's a great film. I absolutely love it, but I think that the other two are better. So number 2 I have, it's beginning with T, Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Number 1, Titanic. I think Terminator 2 is a cooler movie. I think it's maybe a more entertaining movie, but I think Titanic has endured. I think the Titanic had a universal appeal to kids like me who went to see it in the cinema, you know, at age, how old was I then? 9 years old. I literally went to see that film with, you know, women in their 70s and 80s who loved it. And then there was the kind of teenage crowd who went to see it, you know, for the big movie that came out on the weekend. And then the older teenagers who took their girlfriends to see it. And it was a date movie. And then the people in their 20s going on dates and going to see the movie. And then in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and 60s, that is why the film became the phenomenon that it is, because it kind of spoke to every generation. And there were different things to enjoy from it. And I do think watching it again that it is such a brilliant film. It is a fantastic film. And, you know, yeah, I know you guys really don't like it, and I understand, but for me, I can't betray my opinion, and my opinion is that it is an absolute masterpiece of a film. And while, again, if I a gun to my head, I would probably want to watch Terminator 2 over Titanic or Aliens, even Avatar, perhaps. But, you know, Titanic is a film to be treasured. And it's such a technical achievement, and there are things that maybe it isn't entirely historically accurate, but I think the feeling and the intent and the emotion is so brilliant. It's intact. Like, despite some of the minor nitpicks you might have with the film, like, oh, the stars weren't exactly the same, or, oh, the ship only had this amount of funnels, or there was only this amount of lifeboats that he got wrong, you know, or it was only tilted out of the water at 20 degrees, not 37, or whatever it happens to be. I don't think those things matter when you're telling this story that really makes you feel what this moment is like. And again, going through Titanic to get clips for the trailer for this series, I'm just sat there just sitting back and just, you know, getting chills almost. I mean, that shot when you first see the iceberg coming right ahead, and the music and the visuals where you can barely see it, you just almost have to squint to see it, and that's how it probably would have felt to them. And it's like, you know, and you know what's going to happen, and you know that they're staring at their fucking death right in front of them. And maybe it is an easy story to tell, you know, dramatically, but and there are these, you know, criticisms of the love story being so cliche and unnecessary, but I think it adds this extra element. I mean, you know, there's an argument to be made that he could have just made it super down to the wire in terms of historical accuracy and not had any extra drama with Jack and Rose, but I think that connects people to it in a way where the emotion is heightened even more. And you go into the film wanting a love story, and then you come out of it having enjoyed and been moved by the love story, but also having enjoyed and being scared by and being haunted by and moved by the actual story of the Titanic. It serves a dual purpose in that sense of being an entertaining and emotionally fulfilling love story as entertainment, but also a great, like, technical marvel of a recreation and depiction of this historical event that is just this incredible true story, this incredibly horrible true story that just feels like it was written because it's just so ironic, you know, that it was the ship that will never sink, the unsinkable Titanic, and on its first maiden voyage, it is absolutely leveled by an iceberg. It's just, yeah, it's a very dramatic story, and he tells it brilliantly, and that for me is his best film. My favorite is still Aliens, but it's intriguing to see that, because I didn't look at them beforehand, like I said, so the top 7 are fairly similar. 7, True Lies, 6, The Abyss, 5, Terminator, 4, Avatar, all the same, and then you just have Aliens, Terminator 2, and Titanic flipped. Oh, actually, no, it's not flipped, actually, no, because Titanic's number 2 on my favorites. Aliens is number 1. Okay, so it's just reconfigured, either way. And then 4, 5, 6, and 7 are exactly the same. Anyway, I'm glad I knocked this out in about 20 odd minutes. I was worrying that this was going to be another, like, hour-long chunk out of my night gun, because a lot of these videos have spiraled out of control in terms of the running time. But what more is there really to say about these films? I've discussed them ad nauseum at this point, and if you want more, well, if you've watched every video, and at this point you want me talking about James Cameron more, you need to go see a doctor. I'm not kidding. But if you haven't seen all those other videos and you want to hear me speak more on those films in particular, you can always go back to the previous chapters and see the reviews. And if you want a quick way of identifying which ones are reviews and which ones are behind-the-scenes stories, the reviews are the ones that have the thumbnail with the big Cameron King of the World text on the top half of the screen in the thumbnail. The more discussion-y kind of videos about behind-the-scenes stories have the small logo in the top right or top left corner. So that's your visual guide if you don't want to even look at the titles of the videos. So yeah, I will wrap all this up in the next video tomorrow with my coda, my kind of, just thanking people and kind of reflecting on the video series and everything. And that's pretty much about it. So as far as this topic is concerned, please leave me your thoughts down below. I would say be kind, but, you know, have at it. I really don't care what you think about my ranking if you have a problem with it, because it's all just opinions on movies at the end of the day, and we all have different tastes. But I would love to see what your top lists are, what your rankings of his filmography would be, if you count Piranha 2, if you want to count Piranha 2, and where you would rank really that kind of the 7 core canon James Cameron films. I don't consider Piranha 2 to be canon to the James Cameron world, so, but either way, throw it in there if you want. I'd love to see your rankings, which ones you prefer, because again, I know people who they hate Terminator 2 and Titanic, and there's some people who hate Aliens, but they love the Terminator, but not the second one, and then people loathe Avatar, and it's a really interesting. You never get the same opinion on all of his films, I think, from anyone you talk to. There's always different opinions, and yeah. Anyway, so that is it. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.